guys? Welcome to episode number 272 of Bill Man the Sport Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bill Man the Sports Guy. Always remember, for the latest weekly news of the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, WNBA, this is the podcast to be. First, we got some really big news that has been going on in the sports world this week. Kawhi Leonard and the Los Angeles Clippers could be in trouble. There's actually an investigation going into Kawhi Leonard and the Los Angeles Clippers. So there's an investigation, and the Clippers and owner Steve Ballmer could get in a whole lot of trouble. So there's reports that Leonard, he reportedly had a second deal to circumvent the salary cap, adding the complications for the Clippers, the Toronto Raptors, and Kawhi himself. This is a report from CBS Sports. So nearly after the year, they first reported an alleged salary cap circumvention by the Los Angeles Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. The saga has taken another twist. So Pablo Torre, who's like a writer, has released the latest findings from his investigation into the Clippers and Leonard, and included second endorsement deal the Clippers allegedly used to funnel money to Kawhi Leonard with Jumbotron manufacturer Daktronics. So this was talked openly with an organization from people working on the project that Kawhi was a spokesperson for Daktronics, a high-level Clipper source described as a former official told Torre in his podcast episode released Thursday night, or in the, I don't know the type of podcast, but that's what it says in the report. And you can actually find it on the cbssport.com. So to summarize part of it, people at Daktronics and people within the Clippers organization themselves had told me about this multi-million-dollar deal with Kawhi and Daktronics. The Clippers source further explained, they're not a company that you would see a celebrity endorser, which is actually interesting. They would endorse for. It wasn't coming out of Daktronics' end. That's interesting. The Clippers were technically kind of funding it. It was funneling money from the Clippers through Daktronics back to Kawhi Leonard. And this could be what caused the NBA's investigation and it reportedly grow in scope and drag out well into the summer. So the most anticipated a resolution before the new league year began, particularly after the Clippers and Raptors agreed to a trade that would send Kawhi back to Toronto. However, the trade is now on hold, and reports indicate the investigation could drag on well into next season. So there's been no shortage of drama now throughout the saga, but here's a few things. Number one, Steve Ballmer could get in a lot of trouble. Clippers owner Steve Ballmer has been admitted throughout the investigation into the Aspiration deal that he was defrauded by Joe Sandberg, Aspiration's co-founder. Like many other investigators, but the Daktronics deal maker, it makes it difficult for Ballmer and the Clippers to feign ignorance or play the victim. Now, a second deal creates a pattern of behavior that could be easily explained away, and the circumstances around Aspiration shuttering were both a blessing and a curse for the Clippers. On one hand, the bankruptcy and the court filing created the paper trail that led to the discovery of Leonard's deal, but because of the fraud involved, they gave Ballmer an avenue, an attempt to wriggle his way out of the severe punishment by creating murky waters around how much he knew. Eek. The Daktronics deal is perhaps even more damning for the Clippers. This is what a company that has dozens, if not hundreds, of sports partners, but has no other public-facing sponsorship, deals with athletes. Somehow, it was Kawhi Leonard who got a reported multi-million-dollar endorsement deal, right as the Inuit Dome is being built to do nothing. Now, provided the league sponsor investigation confirms that Torre's reporting, it's hard to imagine the NBA won't be forced to bring the hammer down on Ballmer and the Clippers, which we're going to get onto it later because I'm going to anticipate and predict they will. The last flagrant camp circumvention involved Joe Smith was in Minnesota in 1999, and the Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor was actually hit with a year-long suspension, and the team was fined $3.5 million and lost 5 first-round picks, with 2 ultimately being returned. Now, even though this happened in 99, and one question we're going to ask is Kawhi Leonard. Will his contract get voided? Currently, with the Los Angeles Clippers? And also, what additional punishment could he face? Now, the Smith deal is that Leonard entering the final year of his current contract, rather than just about to start a new deal, that the league flagged, if anything, the Gary Trent Jr. contract in Milwaukee, which is also under an NBA investigation, but we're going to focus more on the Kawhi, feels more closely aligned with the Smith scandal. Now, voiding Leonard's deal seems likely given the past precedent. That would cost Leonard $50 million, but the NBA will also have to consider taking things a step further with a suspension. So, is $50 million means he could lose all the $50 million, but I'm going to also assume he could lose more than that. Maybe around $100, $200 million, somewhere around there. Now, if Leonard were to hit the free agent market right now, he'd have calls from every team in the league trying to sign him. With some, like the Raptors, the Warriors, they're able to give him the $15 million mid-level exception. But would the league consider Leonard losing out $35 million enough of a punishment? If this part is true, I would anticipate and think the NBA, Leonard will have to lose more than $35 million. Now, they want to make an even bigger example out of him, given the apparent brazen nature of the cap circumvention at play. Exactly how hard is the NBA going to come down Kawhi Leonard? That's actually a good question we should all ask ourselves. And also another thing, how hard will they go on the Los Angeles Clippers? Steve Ballmer, will he get fired? I assume he will if he's found guilty of it. And the Clippers, I would assume they'll... Actually, if we were to look at how much they're currently worth, which is actually around 6.9 to 7.5 billion as of 2026. It ranks as the fourth most valuable franchise in the NBA. So if true, I think the Clippers would lose about half of it. Maybe a little more than that, but that's just my opinion. And also, how much could this also hurt the Toronto Raptors? Because many are curious why the Raptors suddenly pressed pause on the trade when the league's investigation into Leonard and the circumstances surrounding it were public knowledge for almost a year. Now we know it's because the investigation expanded with a second questionable deal added to the mix. The likelihood of severe punishment for the Clippers and Leonard has increased, which I don't think that would shock me if that was true. But how much could the Raptors be in trouble? If they completed the trade, Leonard's contract had been voided, they would have lost Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and the picks that they were sending to LA at the time. And they would have to figure out what their options were with Leonard. Now, if Leonard's only punishment is his contract being voided, there's a path for the Raptors to keep those draft assets, find another trade for Ingram or keep him, and simply sign Leonard to a mid-level contract as the best value signing of the summer, besides LeBron James on the minimum. Now, given the Raptors were one of the only teams on Leonard's list of teams he'd sign an extension with, they would seemingly be the front runners to sign him. If he suddenly became a free agent and are among a handful of teams, they still have a full mid-level at their disposal. So, and if he also gets suspended for an entire year, it could get awkward in a hurry for the Raptors, because Kawhi was a part of their 2019 championship run. Now, more details. I suggest go read CBS's report about it. So, big three questions. How much could this hurt the Toronto Raptors if this trade were to still go through? Will Kawhi Leonard's contract get voided, which I think it probably will. I'd be surprised if it didn't. Plus, I do think Kawhi could face a year suspension. I think the Los Angeles Clippers are actually in a lot of trouble. So, with all that out of the way, I want to know your thoughts and opinions on the comment section below on YouTube, also on Twitter at BillManSports, Instagram at BillManSportsGuy, and here on YouTube at BillManSportsGuy. Because I'm going to say this. If this all ends up being true, I think the Los Angeles Clippers are going to be in a bunch of trouble. They're in a whole world of trouble. I think the Clippers should give up 5 to 10 first-round picks, if that were to be the case. I think Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard should face 1 whole year suspension. Although it sounds like the league might want to make an example out of it. So let's see what happens, at least until the investigation is done. Alrighty. One shocking news coming out of baseball this past week. The Athletics. I still can't call them Oakland. Ew. Anyway, they have fired general manager David Frost. Now, in recent years, the A's have really won nothing. But they didn't use too many resources as they felt they were on the right path until this season hit. Now, the head of front office is out after 26 years with the organization and 4 as the head of baseball operations. Frost moved to the general manager role in 2016 through Billy Beanes, remained in charge of operations until 2022. Frost did well to draft Nicholas Kurtz, and Nicholas Kurtz is actually a really good baseball player. Now, have they done well in the draft in recent years? Not quite. Lawrence Butler having a little bit of a down year. Now, Brent Rooker, good attempt they kept on, even though he's out for the year. The pitching, even the A's as a team this year, they've been a so-so team. Now, they actually beat the Boston Red Sox 4-3, and their current record is 47-71. So the Athletics this year really have not been good. Even if we were to look at their 2026 stats, they're just not great. I mean, Brent Rooker was having a little bit of a down year before he got out for the season. Lawrence Butler, not doing good. Henry Bottle, who they called up, he's not even having a good year. Tyler Soderstrom has been one of their best players by far. But also Nicholas Kurtz, amazing. Shea Langoliers, amazing. Everybody else, outside of Zach Geloff, Carlos Correas, has done fine. Everyone else has not been great. Even if we were to go to the pitching, like JT Glynn has probably been by far their best pitcher. And out of the pen, Hoken Harris, their closer, and Luis Mendea. Everyone else stinks. Not going to lie. Even looking at WAR, JT Glynn, by far their best pitcher, but even WAR off their hitter, Shea Langoliers and Nicholas Kurtz, and that's about it. Nobody else has really extended well. So it makes sense because the Athletics, they stink. And everyone's been underperforming. Now, I think Mark Kotsay has done a fine job as manager, although this season has not been his best. But let me know who you think will become the next general manager, because whoever will become the new general manager has to get the Athletics to the playoffs, although need to do it in their own way because, let's be honest, John Fisher, screw the A's. They've been on the downfall since 2022. Let's be honest. I also think John Fisher is to blame for this. Now, some NFL signings to report. Hallelujah. We got one of our first signings to talk about, which is Stefon Diggs signs a 1-year contract up to $12 million with the Washington Commanders. And to be honest, I think Stefon Diggs, I think he'll be a good veteran leader for this young Washington Commanders team. And he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. But while off the field has been a bit of an issue, but when he's healthy, he's an elite wide receiver. And I think on a 1-year deal, he'll do good with the Washington Commanders. I actually think he's gonna pan out really well. Next up, Zay Flowers has signed a 4-year, $140 million contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens. And to be honest, Zay Flowers, I thought, took it a little bit of a step a notch this year. And I think he's going to be a star. Actually, I think he'll be a bigger piece for the Ravens going forward. Because when healthy, and the way he catches and runs the ball is pure awesomeness. And Zay Flowers is actually one of my favorite players on the Ravens. So I'm excited to see him for another 4 years in the purple and yellow. All right, our next contract extension. Jonathan Taylor, running back, signs a 2-year, $44 million contract extension with $39 million guaranteed with the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have not been great for the past 10 years, and to be honest, I think Taylor is a big part of their core, and with making a third Pro Bowl selection, and if he does stay healthy, I think he will become one of the best running backs that the franchise has seen. And I also think Jonathan Taylor will actually be really good. And I hope he stays healthy because he is good. And I think he'll carry the Colts to the playoffs when healthy. All right. So throughout the offseason, Jahmyr Gibb and the Detroit Lions were kind of in a contract halt. Well, it finally ended because running back Jahmyr Gibb signs a 3-year, $67.5 million contract extension with $51.5 guaranteed with the Detroit Lions. Listen, man, Jahmyr Gibb is an amazing running back. This guy is a beast with the Lions. Despite having a down year, I think the Lions are going to be better this season, and extending Jahmyr Gibb was the right step in the direction. He was awesome this year. Ran for 13 touchdowns with 1,223 yards, 13 touchdowns, and on the ground, plus he had 616 yards, 5 touchdowns through the air. And he's locked through 2030. Jahmyr Gibb is so awesome. I'm actually so thrilled to watch him play, and I can't wait to watch him be elite at that position. Alrighty, we do have one more extension to talk about with the NBA, and that is OG Anunoby in the New York Knicks. He got his extension, 5 years, $212 million, and to be honest, this is a great contract because OG Anunoby also played a huge part in the Knicks championship run. I still think the Knicks have a chance for a dynasty with Jalen Brunson, who was awesome, and seeing OG Anunoby be good, now going to be part of the core. This is awesome. Excellent job by the New York Knicks. And this basically concludes today's episode of 271 with Bill Man the Sport Guys podcast. I'm your host, Bill Man the Sports Guy. Always remember, for the latest weekly news of the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, WNBA, this is the podcast to be. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Stay tuned for my next episode because I will be doing an NFL prediction. And yes, in case you haven't seen my episodes from last NFL season, I did power rankings. The power rankings will return. And by the way, I will be doing one before the preseason starts. At the end, have a great day. Have a great week. Peace out.